So whenever you want to create a remote distribution point, right? So all you need to do is you'll go to the servers and site system rules. Okay, and say suppose in this case we wanted to create on, I have one more member server called ESD underscore server. It's just a member server, right? If you want to create, so say create site system server, browse and give that server ESD. And then I say in the site code. So this is where you're going to select your distribution point, right? So that's all you do it from the server side. So this configuration here, there are two things. So it says the distribution point contains source files for clients to download. So that it is describing what DB does, and then it says install and configure IAS if required by configuration manager. If say suppose you haven't, you don't have IAS on that remote DP and you don't have all the different IAS features, right? Like bits is one of those IAS feature, remote differential compression is one of those, WebDAV is one of those. So if you don't have such features configured, so what you can do is you can just click here. So it will install and also configure IAS that is required for distribution point, right? And then this part we have discussed whether you wanted to go with HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, and say suppose if you're going with HTTPS, a secured layer, then there are two ways of doing it. Either if you have a CA server, certification authority server, wherein within your domain uh, different team registers certificates, right? If they issue certificate, you can use that certificate, or else what you can do is by default it comes with a self-signed certificate. You can also use a self-signed certificate, because when we are going with HTTPS, that means that if any client machine is trying to contact this distribution point to download the content, right? So it is going to authenticate based on the certificate, right? So either you can go ahead and use a self-signed certificate, or you can import the certificate given by your system admins, which is issued by your CA server, right? Say that next. Okay. So here what we are doing is like what is the space required on this server, right? And if you want to have that content library location, right? Do you want it to have on your C drive or D drive on that particular server? So say suppose on C drive is your OS drive, and D drive you have that 500 GB of space on that DP, right? So either you can mention automatic, or you can exactly give the whichever drive you want, right? So it is preferred to give the exact drive rather than leaving it as automatic, so that uh, you'll have it at the desired location. So this is the default content library location, and there is something called package share location. So what does that mean? So package share location is like, see, you guys remember the content library folder that I've shown you the other day, the data library, file library, and the package library, right? So that is something which has came up from 2012 onwards, right? So what is that doing? It is doing a single instance storage, whereas the older version, as I told you, in 2007, what it does is whichever package or application that you're copying, that would be directly copied as is, just like how you are doing a robocopy or how you are doing a copy paste. It would directly copy onto the server. It will just create a folder with the same package ID, right? And it will copy the whole contents. Whatever, if you have MSI here, it will copy the MSI there. If you have a bunch of exes, batch files and everything, it will exactly copy it, so that say suppose if you want to manually install that application in that local location, in that location, right? You can as well copy that data from the DP as well. Manually you can go to that browse to the DP, copy the content from there onto your local machine and install it. That used to be the case in 2007. Starting with 2012, since they made it complex with this content library, package library, data library, it is not that easy to extract the content from there and copy onto the local machine and install, right? But say suppose if for some reason, for some of the application, you still need the whole content to be available on DP, right? So then what we do while creating that application, we'll select I even want it to be there. The complete binary should be available so that anybody can download. Okay, that is an option. So this location is talking about that option. So say suppose if you have selected an application or package that it has to copy the complete content, not a single instance storage kind of pointers and all. I want the exact content so that I can manually install. If some user has some problem, I can manually copy it from the DP and install. Then yes, it will go under this package share location. So there are two locations, right? And now you say next. Okay, it is asking if it is a pull DP, if you want to configure it as pull DP. We discussed about this, right? If you want to configure this as pull DP, so enable this DP to pull content from other DPs, and then you'll give that other DP from where it has to pull, the source DP, right? Next, this is the PXE part. So if you want to even use this DP for operating system deployments as well, then we did this, right? On the existing DP, that's what we did. We have enabled the PXE, we gave a PXE password. That's the reason we are getting those PXE password screens, right? In the initial class of OSD, we have done this. So similarly, for a new DP, if you want to enable PXE, this is where you do. Same goes with multicasting. So to be very honest with you, nobody is using multicasting these days, but you can use multicasting for mass deployments. OSD, if you are doing mass deployments and you want to have less or zero impact on the number of deployments that you can manage. So typically what will happen when you're doing operating system deployments, and if you have 10 machines connected and all the 10 machines are trying to contact the same DP on the PXE enabled DP and downloading, so there might be the whole process might get slower, right? Because 10 machines or 20 machines are connected to the same DP and they're trying to install. So what we do is, in that case, we enable multicasting. So what this multicasting will do is, it's kind of parallel transmission kind of. So that will help all these deployments to happen at a faster pace, right? So, but nowadays, as I said, nobody is using multicasting. But if you want to enable multicasting, this is where you do it. We have discussed about content validation, right? So I told you on a DP properties, I've shown you like once the, say suppose you have done the pre-staging is done, so you have all the content on that new DP, and you wanted to kind of validate whether there is a hash file mismatch, or whether the content on the site server and the content available on the DP are both one and the same, right? In that case, you do a content validation. Not only in that case, there are other things, like sometimes, see, DP is nothing but a file server or a storage area, right? So sometimes what will happen, there are chances of the files getting corrupted on the distribution point, or people might play with it, and some of the files might get lost or corrupted, because DP is everybody can access it, right? Like when I say everybody, at least the system admins can access it. And if somebody manipulates it or something happens and the data is lost or data is changed, it is always preferred to have this content validation to run on a schedule. So typically what we do is we set this content validation to run over the weekend. So even if something goes wrong on that particular server, over the weekend it fixes, it will check, okay, it will do a content validation, it will find, okay, on my site server, Adobe Reader has 3 files. On my distribution point, somebody has deleted 1 file, so now I have only 2 files, right? So it will identify that 1 file is missing, and then it will again copy it from the site server and keep it ready, so that Monday morning when you're doing any deployments, the over the weekend the content validation will happen, right? So this is one of those DP features. Finally, your favorite boundary groups. So you need to associate this with some boundary group. Only then the client machines will know to which DP it has to. So say suppose you are building this ESD server. If you are building this for Mumbai location, so here you give the Mumbai DP boundary groups, so that all the Mumbai IP addresses, all the Mumbai computers will know that there's a new DP in their boundary group, and they start downloading from this particular DP. Right, so this finishes the product. So once this is done, so automatically you'll find the ESD server will be converted into a DP. Clear, Anil?
Yes, Manoj.
Okay. So there is one more way to do this. So what we do is there are PowerShell commandlets. Okay, I've just cancelled it. Okay, because that's not the whole intent. So we have PowerShell commandlets which we can use to build multiple DPs. Typically, they will get come handy when you wanted to build like 50 DPs in your for your client, right? So in that case, doing the same activity what we just did for 50 different distribution points, right? Rather than doing that, what you can do is you can just have that commandlet run and give all those 50 DPs listed out, maybe in a CSV or text file, so that PowerShell script, when it runs, it automatically picks all this in your computer names as input, the server names as input, and it will start building them into TPs. So that's another way. That's a PowerShell commandlet we already have. Okay. Okay. So going back to where we are. So in yesterday's session, what we did, we ran this task sequence. Win7 deployment task sequence, right? So this was successful and we were able to build that machine, the target machine. So if you go through yesterday's video, you will understand that we were able to get the final machine built with Adobe Reader and Google Chrome, okay, and with the captured image. So the thing here was, so yesterday during the while I was recording, I found there are a couple of um, a couple of errors popped up, and then I have troubleshooted them. So the one thing is, just if I want to highlight it, so one thing what you need to make sure is in your SCM installation, right? So what happened during our build and capture task sequence also, and also in the deployment task sequence, if this particular thing is not given installation property, right? So typically in the build and capture task sequence, what will happen, since the machine is in work group and you're installing the client agent, so it's always preferred to have the SMS management point, the management point details. So only when you have management point details, the client machine will be automatically communicating with your management point, and then it will be able to install the further applications or whatever it is. So what I found in the build and capture task sequence, we did not give this installation property. So as a result, one of those applications was not installed in the build and capture task sequence. Right, so this is one thing. So make sure that while you are creating a build and capture task sequence, have the management point details there, because the machine will be in work group and you need to it might not know to which management point it has to communicate to, because if the machine is in domain, anyways we have extended schema, and in the schema we have the management point details, the site details, everything has been published. SCM has published everything onto Active Directory schema. So that way at least a domain joined machine would know to which server it has to go. But whereas a workgroup machine in the build and capture task sequence, it wouldn't know to which management point it has to go. So mentioning it explicitly will um, help you in install configuring the client agent. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to share. And yesterday also there was one more issue with the Adobe Reader application, and that error was nothing but during while creating the Adobe Reader application, I had set a requirement that a particular registry OS build info should be equal to Q1 2017. So that was for demo purpose. I just created a requirement, right? But when we are trying to run that application as part of task sequence, as part of the day requirements, it will actually check whether the machine has that registry or not, Q1 2017. And obviously a newly built machine will never have that registry. So that's the reason Adobe Reader, so it was not failure, it is not a failed application. So how it considers it as it considers a successful application, because while it tried to run, it first checked for the requirements and it found the requirements are not met. That means this application is not applicable to the Windows submission and it did not install. So it gave the exit code 0, right? So you can go through yesterday's video for better understanding. So, okay. Now, if you look at the operating systems part, okay. So we have covered the boot images, we have covered the task sequence, right? And also we have covered the operating system images, but there is one important thing, which is drivers and driver packages, right? So here, since we are working on virtual machines, we are not facing a much difficulties, or we are not seeing the significance of the drivers and driver packages. But in real time, when you're building the physical laptops, physical desktops, definitely this is going to be a significant step. So let's look into it and try to understand what and how to use these drivers and driver packages. Okay, so the first thing what we do here, see, currently you don't have any drivers, right? So let me create a folder and call it as HP Lite Netbook 840. Okay, because those are the, I think those are the drivers I've downloaded. I've downloaded for HP Lightbook 840. Okay. So it is always preferred to organize drivers with respect to different manufacturers and models. If you have multiple models under the same manufacturer, it is even better to have one folder with the manufacturer name, and then under that have all the different models, right? That way it will be much more organized and easy for you to manage. So now, how do you import the drivers? So what you do, you import driver. So give a location for that. This folder is not there, so let me create it. Under source, I'm creating one new folder called Sccm drivers. Okay. So we will also create a category. So typically categories in drivers, what does that mean is, so you can categorize drivers based on their purpose. Like you can make it as something like network drivers, audio drivers, storage drivers, right? And then you can categorize with respect to their utility, or what you can do is you can also categorize them based on their manufacturer and model. So how does that help? So later, while you're calling them in the task sequence, right? So you can directly either even to distribute them to a distribution point, or while calling them in a task sequence, you can directly use this category to identify them, right? So here, let's say next. Sorry, I think the actual drivers, I have it under the drivers folder. I have already created that. I've just downloaded them from the HP support website. So what I did, I just downloaded three different drivers. One is audio, card reader, and mobile broadband. So network and some storage kind of thing, and then the audio drivers. Just for demo purpose, I've downloaded some three drivers there. And if you open them, so typically the drivers will have these, INF files. So these security catalog files, right? So, and this is files. This is how SCM will read and understand. Looks like this one, the audio one is a bigger one, I guess. Yeah, this is 279 MB. Other two must be, shouldn't take much. 7 MB and this is 60 MB. So guys, can one of you tell me, so typically how do you install drivers on any machine? How do you do that? What are the different ways that you have done installing drivers?
So normal installation, we will download the drivers and install one by one.
Okay. And have you ever used the device manager to install drivers?
Which manager?
The device manager. Have you ever used device manager to scan your, say, suppose you have if you have connected a new hardware,
Sometimes you see, sometimes the USB is got disabled on its own. So that time I will open the device manager and refresh it. Otherwise, I try to uninstall from there. Otherwise, I'm trying to scan and update the drivers. Yes.
right? Okay, okay. So yeah, just hold on to that discussion. So I'll continue the discussion and try to relate that how it works in the SCCM. Okay, so here, so from May SCCM source drivers, I've downloaded, I've imported those drivers into SCCM now. So it is showing all those drivers. So there are some media drivers, then it has some system drivers, right? The class based on the class. Smart card reader drivers are there, modem ports, and these are the drivers that you have, right? Now, typically what will happen is in a boot image, okay, whenever you're using boot image, there are certain drivers which are to be part of boot image. Say suppose you're trying to build a HP, the same HP EliteBook 840 machine, okay. When this boot image downloads, so what is boot image? For layman understanding, boot image is also a mini operating system. So whenever a mini operating system or some operating system is running on your hardware, it requires drivers, right? So the boot image, when it downloads, so what are the drivers that are required for the boot image? So typically the drivers which are required are only two. One is the network, other one is storage. Why? Because what is that a boot image does? It will first of all communicate to the SCCM server. It is helping you to talk to the SCCM server and download the operating system image, right? So that's the first step what boot image does. So it is helping you to download the operating system image. And what is the other step it does? It is actually formatting your hard disk and partitioning your hard disk. So in order to do these two steps, one, it requires to talk to your hard disk. That means it requires to have storage drivers. Other, it has to talk to your SCCM server. That means it has to have network drivers. Okay. So what you will do is, say suppose if you have all the drivers, like in my SCCM console, if I have all the different models, so I have 10 models. So make sure that tomorrow if you want to build a 11th machine, if you want to have somebody has purchased, your company has decided to have a 11 model introduced into your ecosystem. So the moment they bring in the 11th model, all you need to do is in your SCCM console, you have to import all the drivers and then categorize these network drivers and the storage drivers and make sure that you're having this network and storage as part of the boot image. You have to import them into the boot image for every single model that you're going to support. Otherwise, it will fail at the boot image itself. Clear, guys? And some people, some HCM administrators, they also prefer to keep display drivers as part of the boot image. That is their preference, and it is only for to have a better UI. Say suppose if you have a very good laptop of 18 inches or bigger laptops, right? And during the boot image process and all, you want to have a better readability, better display. So what you can have, you can also have a display driver at that point, but that's a preference. But mandatory is network and storage, right? And don't just populate your boot image with all the drivers that are available. That will increase the size of boot image and it defeats the purpose, because boot image is a mini OS which has to sit on your RAM, right? So if you're including all the drivers into it, so you're increasing the size of the boot image, thereby it is going to impact the whole process, right? Now, why I'm talking about boot image at this point is, so what will happen, these are the different drivers, right? It has audio, it has network, and it has smart card reader drivers. So say suppose if you are importing these drivers only for including them into or importing them into the boot image, what you can do is you can check this box, hide drivers that are not in a storage or network class, right? So when you click here, it will remove the media. So it has removed the audio drivers, as you can see, right? Now it has only the mobile broadband. It does not have even the smart card reader. That is not required. Smart card reader drivers are not required during OS deployment, during boot image, right? Are you clear, guys? So the moment I remove that, so it shows all these are required for the normal operating system. However, if you are for boot image, the moment you select here, only the network drivers are being shown, right? So similarly, you can also check if the drivers are digitally signed or not, if you're getting it from the right source. So in my case, I've got all these drivers from the support h.hp.com. So obviously they are digitally signed. So okay, enable these drivers and allow computers to install them. Now what I'm saying is I can have assigned categories. So in this case, I know all these drivers are for HP Lightbook, so I can create a category for the model itself. Okay, so next. So here it is asking select the package to add the imported drivers. So now you just created, you have all these drivers imported into console. What you need to create is you need to create a driver package, right? Because how, how will the client machine download? Client machine will only know the driver package. It knows the packages and applications. So it goes to the distribution point and it downloads the packages, right? So what we are doing here is we are trying to bundle them all of them together into a driver package and distribute so that we can distribute it to the DPs. You cannot distribute individual driver. You can distribute a complete driver package, right? So let us say that I'll create a new package and I name it the same thing, HPA Lightbook 840. Maybe I can mention that I have only Windows 7 drivers or something like that. And now I give a new location to it. Okay, so I'll call it Sccm drivers and I'll give a separate location only for these drivers. So this is where the actual driver package is going to be. Let me create this folder so that it will not throw any error saying that the folder doesn't exist. Guys, I hope that you're able to follow me.
This one is good.
Okay, cool. So say okay. So that's what I have expected it. So did I miss anything here? My SCCM. Acha. See, it is under source. Right. So new package will be created once we finish this step. Next, it is asking us, do I need to include these drivers into the boot image? No, right? Because this includes audio drivers, your smart card readers, drivers, everything. Our purpose is not to include into the boot image. So don't do it at this stage. Let's just import the drivers and create a driver package. So later on, you can go to the boot image and import these drivers there. So for now, you say, okay, no, I will not select any one of these. So it is showing all these drivers. Next. So currently the drivers that you're importing, they will sit in the directly under the drivers folder. So since we wanted to organize them into different folders, what you can do is you can move them into the Lightbook 840 folder once they are imported here. I shouldn't have picked the audio drivers. That's almost like 270 280 MB. Yeah. Meanwhile, let's go back to our previous discussion. So you guys are telling me there are two ways of installing drivers. One, you download the drivers from the internet, and it could be something like a setup.exe or use some MSI, sometimes some software, right? You double click and you install it. That's one way. The other way is you go to device manager. You say, suppose you connected a printer, right? You go to device manager. You say scan plug and play devices, right? Wait a minute, guys. So let me close this. So successfully it says it has imported all these drivers. Close. See, you can see all those drivers here. It shows what are the supported platforms and what are those drivers, the version date, and each and every detail. And this is the category. So this category helps you in identifying those drivers. So see in our case, we have created a folder, right? But typically these categories, if you don't have folders, this will definitely help you. And also now say suppose you have different model drivers here, right? So you can um, sort them based on the category and then select all, and you can move them to HP Lightbook, right? So now I have them here, right? And if you see the driver packages, it should have created one driver package as well automatically, because during the process of importing drivers we have created a driver package, right? Since now we have a driver package, let's distribute it. So anytime you create something new, you distribute the content, right? Okay, so now you have drivers imported and you have created a driver package. Say suppose you wanted to include only those into the boot image, only those network drivers into the boot image. So what are the different ways of doing it? Either you can go to boot image, properties, drivers, and add drivers, right? So here either you can add all those drivers which are under this HP Lightbook folder, and you have the same option again: hide drivers that do not match the architecture of the boot image, hide drivers that are not in a storage or network class and that are not digitally signed. That means you're getting only digitally signed network or storage drivers, and which are of 64-bit, because this boot image is 64-bit. So only those drivers are visible here. Then you can select out of those what and all you require, right, and say okay. So that's how you are selecting those drivers, right? All these drivers are selected. So the moment you say apply, so what will happen is it will mount this boot image. It is like mounting and unmounting. What we talk in images, we call about mounting and unmounting. It is similar to your extracting and compressing a zip file, right? So what it will do is it will mount. That means it is extracting and putting all these drivers inside into it, and then it again compresses it back or unmounts it back. And then you need to distribute this updated boot image. Now you have within the boot image you have network drivers related to HP Lightbook. You need to update this boot image to all the distribution points again, right? So let me cancel this step. This is just for your understanding. So once say suppose if you have applied there, it would have taken some time to mount and unmount, and after that you have to update to distribution points, right? So this is one way. The other way is you can go to HP Lightbook. So here also you can select those drivers what and all you want. Say suppose you want anything which is with network class. Okay, and these four drivers, say suppose these are those four drivers that you wanted as part of boot image. You select those four, edit, and then you will select the boot image, right? So now you're selecting I want these four to be part of. So now you can select, it will show you the boot images 64 and 32-bit. So in which boot image you want, you can select, you can install it there. Did I select all of them? Looks like I had a controlled selection. by mistake. Okay, so I can select those drivers and then I can give a boot image x64 and I will add it. Guys, is it clear how to add drivers to boot image and what is the purpose and why do we need to input drivers to boot image? Is that part clear?
It's
Any questions here, Amar or Anil?
no. Just no, no.
Clear. Good.
No, Manu.
Good. Fine. So now you have drivers, you have driver packages, and you know how to import them into boot images. Next, let's go back to our discussion. So one way is like directly downloading and installing those drivers. The other way is you are actually um, you are actually going to your device manager and you are doing a scan the hardware, and when it scans the hardware it will show, okay, this is the new hardware. It will show with a warning symbol there, yellow triangle, right? Then you either update drivers, right? So let me quickly show that part what I'm talking. Is it dev mgmt? Dev, yeah, dev mgmt device manager. So what I'm talking about here is you right click and you say scan for hardware changes, right? So if there were any new hardwares connected, it would scan and let you know. Say suppose if it is a some disk drive. So what you'll do, you'll right click and you say update driver software, right? Or install a driver software. Then the options that you get here is search automatically for update driver software, right? So it will go to the internet and it will keep on checking on the internet for the any latest drivers or the appropriate exact driver. Maybe you had a generic driver installed initially for a display and now you want the exact display driver. So it can either search automatically from internet or it will even browse on your computer for any such kind of driver software. So what will happen in the background? Basically, it is checking for the most compatible or matching driver. So it has all the INF files somewhere on your machine. So it is checking on your machine, local computer, if it has any compatible or best matched INF file. So based on that, it is installing the particular driver, right? So similar to that, what we do here is when you have a task sequence, when we are talking about the mass deployment task sequence, right? This is the deployment task sequence. Forget about the build and capture. Build and capture is just you're doing on a virtual machine and it's just an image. But now mass deployment, you do it on 100 different models, right? So in this case, what we do is you have apply device drivers here. So you have an option called auto apply drivers. So what this auto apply drivers would do is it will go and check on your whatever categories that you select. Say suppose if you select some 15 models you have, if you select 15 models categories here, so it will check under these categories for best matched compatible driver. Okay, this is similar to your device manager. So what happens in your device manager, it is actually doing a scan, so and then it is checking on your local computer what is the best match driver, compatible driver, and it is installing that particular driver. So what you can do is, say suppose you have 100 different models. You can have all the 100 different model categories here, right? You can select all those categories. You can say, okay, this category. Then like that, if you have 10 different models, you can select all those categories. Or you say, consider drivers from all categories. Or how many, if you have 100 models, consider it from all categories. Now, if your machine is HP EliteBook 830, okay, you're saying install best match drivers or compatible drivers. So it will check for in all categories if it has any 830 drivers, right? If it has 830, it will install. If it does not have 830, if whatever is the best match driver, even if 840 driver is the best match driver, it will install that. If there is no such best matching driver, it will not install and it will skip and it will proceed further, right? So this way, what we are doing is we are just having one step in the task sequence, which will actually check for the drivers, best match drivers, and finally it will scan and install. The other way of doing this is instead of doing an auto apply drivers, you can have altogether a new step, apply driver package, right? So when you are having an apply driver package, you are actually calling a specific driver package. Here it is a category in the device drivers. In the apply driver package, I'm calling out a specific driver package, and now what I will do is I'm saying that okay, install HP EliteBook 840. So now I say apply HP EliteBook 840 drivers, right? And what I'll do here is in the options I'll say I'll just put a condition, select star from Win32 computer system where manufacturer equal to HP, right? And model, if I know the exact model I can put the model exact, or else I can put model like percentage. So, you know, it will have book and 840 strings there. So the moment you set it this way, I don't know if the entire syntax was right or wrong. Test query, invalid query, I think somewhere in the codes, right? Somewhere in the codes. I don't know if I've given the right codes here. But okay, we'll look into this query a little later. But the whole intent of this is you can give a query here which will check your WMI to find what is the who is the manufacturer and what is the model of this machine, and accordingly once you have that query here, so only HP EliteBook machines will have this step run. So only they will get all the HP EliteBook related drivers, and then like this, if you have 10 different models, you can have 10 different task or line items here, right? For each one you have your specific model there. So tomorrow 11 model is introduced into your ecosystem. You're going to create a new driver package anyways, and coming back to you come back to the task sequence, you'll have a new step, a new condition, and only those whenever the machine is identified as the 11th model, the specific drivers are installed. So the difference between auto apply and apply drivers driver packages, here we are making sure that all the drivers are installed, because whatever you have in the driver package, all those drivers will get installed. Whereas in auto apply drivers, basically what it is doing, it is scanning in all those 10 different models or 11 different models that you have and trying to install the best match drivers. So sometimes there are chances that it cannot find the best match driver and it skips, right? And that is a time taking process because it is checking all the drivers that you have, right? Just to install HP EliteBook 840, it is checking like Dell, Lenovo, every driver that is existing in your SCCM or on the DP, right? So that is time consuming. That is increasing your OS deployment time. Whereas what is the benefit of that? While creating task sequence, it is just one step. Here, while creating the task sequence, it might be 10 different steps, but during the deployment, it will be much faster and much reliable because all the drivers which are in that driver package will definitely get installed. Guys, do you have any questions in auto apply drivers and apply driver package? Anything confusing here? Because if I want you to be saying confidently no or yes, or if you're in doubt, please let me know. Okay, I consider that you don't have any doubts in this particular area. So let me show about that WMA query that we are talking about. That's a small query. It shouldn't take much time. This will just be helpful to you. It's not mandatory to know that query, but select star from Win32 computer system. Okay, maybe if it says so, maybe there is an underscore here, and that's what I missed. Yeah, right. So when you go to the Win32 computer system class, there will be manufacturer and model. In this case, it will be Microsoft Corporation and virtual machine because we are using a Hyper-V machine. So it is manufacturer model. So the only mistake what I did in the earlier thing was not putting an underscore there. Start from Win32 underscore computer system, where I can directly give the model equal to, if I know the exact model name, so if the model is equal to Elite book 840. Okay, so now the return result count is 0. That means it is working. It is not saying invalid syntax. It says contains valid syntax, right? That's it. Now this is the WMAQ error. So next time when during the task sequence, if this task sequence runs on HP Elite book, it will check for this and automatically the respective drivers will get installed. Guys, clear?
Yes.
Cool. So that's done. So drivers and driver packets have been taken care. The boot image importing is taken care. Yeah. So the other part in operating system deployment, one more important aspect is user state migration. So if you remember, till day was starting from the day one, we are talking about um, the important thing is one, the OS layer, the hardware layer, which is drivers, and the software layer, which are the applications, and then the user layer, which is the actual user data, right? And these are the core components. On top of it, you can do some kind of beautification, like wallpapers, customizations, this, that, and you can also have security as one more layer. When I say security, it's like if you are building Windows 10 machine, you might want to look into some of the security features like credential guard, device guard, Windows Hello for Business, app locker, bit locker. So these are all security things which you want to enable on and above the default OS installation you want to enable. So those are it's entirely a different preference, right? It differs from company to company, and when you are planning for something like security feature like credential guard or device guard, so you need to have UEFI. It will not work on BIOS, right? So, and if you are talking about BitLocker, it requires TPM. So all these different security features, if you want to enable, that depends on multiple other factors as well. So that is out of our scope for the discussion, but the important core components are hardware, software, OS, and user. These are the four important layers. So we already touched upon the OS image. So we have built and captured an image. We talked about the drivers now. We have talked about the software, how to have core applications baked in the image using build and capture task sequence, how to have LOB applications as part of the task sequence, which are coming out of the image, right? Those two we have looked upon. Now the final layer is user layer. So how do you get this user data captured and restored? Theoretically, we talked multiple times, like state migration point, the data will be copied there after machine formats, it restores back. Let's see it practically. How does it happen? So the first thing, the core component responsible for USMT is the state migration point. So let's build that server. So when you go to site system and roles, right? So again, we are doing it on the same server. If you want to do it on a different server, you are going to click here, create site system server. If you are doing on the same server, you select the same server and say add site system roles. You're just adding one more role to it. So let me add state migration point to it. All right. So what does it say? The description says a state migration point stores user data when a computer is migrated to a new operating system. All right. That's what we need. Now it says state migration point stores user data when a computer is migrated to a new operating system, and it requires a storage folder where it has to copy, right? So let me quickly create a folder here. So under source, say suppose this is my USMT server. So I'm creating a folder here called USMT data. Okay, let me just share it with, I can just share it with specific people and give them complete access. So I'm just sharing everyone. So it is SCCM source USMT data. So I can give the location on this particular server. It is under E drive source USMT data, right? So maximum clients and minimum free space which is required. So if you remember in yesterday's class, I've talked about task sequence, requesting the state migration point, do you have space, kind of, right? So it depends on what is the space that we are configuring as minimum. So we are telling that 100 MB is the minimum free space. So every time a client machine wants to do a migration, it wants to store some data on the state migration point, it will come and check, do I have at least 100 MB free on your machine on the under the USMT data folder? Do I have at least 100 MB? So that if you have 100 MB, that means that's the minimum space required so that I can proceed with my data copy, right? So here you can say, suppose you know that your user's profile is at least 1 GB, say suppose. Ideally, it should not be that much. If it is, then it is going to be a problem for you while you're doing migrations, right? Every time copying 1 GB of data and restoring back for every single user, it is going to take a lot of time. So this is where you will change. And the maximum number of clients, concurrently how many client machines data you want to save on the USMT server, right? Say okay. Now in in production environment, so what will happen is you will not do the, say suppose you have 10,000 machines, you will not do mass deployment of 10,000 machines in a single day. There will be a phased out manner, right? So you will do it in different phases. So maybe we call it as pilot deployments and then the velocity deployments. Pilot deployments are something like which you do like maybe 10 machines a day or 15 machines a day. So those are the pilot machines to just see how the process is running and everything is fine. So typically you pick these IT users as your pilot users because they are IT friendly. Even if something goes wrong, they know how to manage it. So you don't go to the business users, you'll go to your IT users and do migration from Windows 7 to Windows 10 for them. Okay. And after that, when you go to the velocity deployments, that's where you're picking up like 100 users in a day or 200 users in a day. So in that course, what will happen is your USMT server will have a lot of data stored there, right? So it's always preferred to have a deletion policy. You don't need the data once the machine has been migrated and their data has been restored. You don't need the data, right? But sometimes, say suppose if the OSD fails, right, or the user claims that his data is missing, you wanted to recheck if something has been missed out while copying, right? So you want to keep it for certain number of days, right? So typically what you can do is, so by default it says every single day, because velocity deployments, every single day you're building 100 machines. Then think about by the end of the week you'll have like 500 machines and each machine is copying somewhere around 100 MB. So just think about how much space is required on the USMT server, right? So typically it is always better to delete it once in every single day. But in your case, if you think at least one more day is required to check back on that machine, you say, okay, keep the user data on that server for a couple of days. Is it clear, guys? You are able to follow
Yes,
me?
Manoj.
Okay,
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
cool. So next,
Now, but for a real-time scenario, how long is the data being kept?
one day,
Do they
one day,
keep it 15, 30 days?
one day, one day. So
Just one day, is it?
yeah, just one day. See, the capacity planning goes like this. So how do you do the capacity planning for a state migration point? It is a simple multiplication calculation you have. Number of machines multiplied by each machine's data multiplied by how many days you want to keep it there. That's the simplest calculation. Say suppose you know that you want to maintain like 100 machines, right? You want to have in a day I'm going to build 100 machines and I know each machine's data, sorry here, I know each machine's data is like at least each user will have 500 MB of data, right? Into you have how many days you want to keep. I want to keep it for at least 2 days, right? So now what will happen? At any given point of time, you'll have 100 machines data for 2 days. That means 200 machines data, 200 into 500 MB. So, or zero point 0.5 GB. Let's make it easier. 200 into zero point 0.5, how much it is? 100, right? 100 GB. So at any given point of time, you require 100 GB of space on that particular state migration point. So this is how you do capacity planning. So if you know that I want this data for at least 7 days, so accordingly this changes. Is it clear?
Okay. Yeah.
So it is completely up to you. So if you know that you have enough space on that server and you wanted it for more days, or you know that my end users will not have 500 MB, they will have only 100 MB, or they'll have, like, there are users I've seen coming up with 5 GB data also. So that depends. So based on that, you have to do your capacity planning. Clear, guys?
But normally users have only the PSD size itself 20 GB if he is working for 5 years in a company.
Mm-hmm.
So and at that time I think we should go too much bigger, right? If I are going to
No, no.
100 users, okay?
So that depends. That depends. See, PST is not everybody is using these PST files nowadays. See, users. See, maybe in your company, it's a policy that people archive their PSTs and keep it aside. Maybe that's the policy that your company is following. But nowadays, what I'm seeing is that the people are moving away from those PSTs, taking backup of larger PSTs. The moment you are talking about 20 GB PST, there are chances of corruption of those PSTs, right? So what people are nowadays doing is like they will retain the mails on the server itself, right? So that's one way. Or else you can also talk to the you can have bring it as a user culture wherein you can tell them, okay, we are doing a migration from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Taking backup of your PSTs is your own responsibility. Take it backup on your local hard disks, external hard disks, and you yourself has to copy it back. That depends on a user culture and the discussions.
Okay. But still my users have around 300 GB of data. A lot of users have around. Even I have at least nearby 100 GB of data. My system related to the office, like official work only.
Yeah, so
So,
that depends. See, for example, if you have some data which is already available on the file server, okay, you have a
okay.
standard file servers, or you have roaming profiles, or there are different ways of keeping that storing the data, right? You have DFS servers, but apart from that, you are still preferring to have it on your local server. Then you need to classify it why you need it on a local server. If you already have a file server, you can have it there, or sometimes people will carry their own personal files, right? You might
Yes,
have
of course,
you,
yeah.
you you might have your child's first birthday video, which is
Yeah,
of some
yes.
GB, and it is still on lying on your office laptop, right? Company doesn't want to take care of doing a migration of our personal videos. So yes, I totally understand your point, but the thing is, it all happens as part of USMT planning. We need to talk to the users, and what we can also do is there is something called USMT estimation script. When you run that script on, say, suppose randomly, if you run on some 100 machines, so what this script will do, it will do an estimation. It will tell you that, okay, this is your user data, this is how the users are saving the data. It will not give the exact files or file names. It will randomly tell you, okay, on this computer I see that there is 100 GB data, on this computer there is 10 GB data. Then you'll get to know, because typically when you talk to the senior management level, so when you go to say, when I myself, I'm a consultant, I go to different customers, I talk to them. So when I deal with the stakeholder, he will say that, no, 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 my users are they know how to classify their data, so their data would be not more than 1 GB. Okay, so that's what I hear from the stakeholder. But when I run the estimation script, I see that, okay, most of them have a lot many videos, lot many images, and also company data, which is going beyond like 10 GB, 20 GB, 30 GB of data, right? So that kind of discussion should happen in the initial stages, and then there are some actions that we can take. I'll talk about those actions, what we can take when there is a lot of data, right? So guys, if you're clear with the state migration point, this particular step, we'll proceed further.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me say next, and same goes with the boundary group, right? Just like you're creating a DP, you need a boundary group, state migration point. So every time you only with the boundary group, the client would relate to a server, right? So in this case, okay, we already have created this Houston boundary group. Okay, Say next. Right. So now I have state migration point created. So as you can see, there'll be one more role added to this. Okay, state migration point is added. Now, okay, state migration point is there, but how will like machine knows when to go to a state migration point, right? So let me tell you, there are two scenarios when the user data migration is required. Two scenarios. One scenario, I have a Windows 7 machine or a Windows XP machine. That means I have an older operating system machine. On the same machine, I'm going to install Windows 10. That means I'm going to format this machine and install Windows 10 or Windows 7, the latest operating system. Now, I have to take an user data backup, right? And after formatting, installing OS, I'm going to restore. This is one scenario where user data backup is required. The other scenario is I have Windows 7 or XP or even Windows 10 on my machine, but I have an older laptop. My company has decided to give me a newer laptop. So what I'm now going to do is I have to do a USMT capture on my old laptop and then format install OS on the new laptop, not on the old laptop. On the new laptop, I'm formatting it, I'm installing new OS, and then I'm restoring the user data back on the newer laptop, right? So these are two scenarios. One is the refresh scenario, the other one is a replace scenario. Completely you're replacing the hardware. So refresh and replace. Now, how do you handle these two scenarios? First thing is, whenever you are running this task sequence, if you go through this task sequence, say suppose you are running this task sequence in the case 1, wherein I have same laptop, on the same laptop I have older OS, I want a new OS, same laptop, right? So when you run this task sequence, if you remember the other day I told you that it will check, request the user state storage. Now it knows, it goes to the state migration point. Do I have space? Okay, it will check. Then it will capture the data. Okay, and then it confirms that the data has been captured, right guys? The same thing will repeat on the same machine. It is going to again check for the user state storage. Do you have the USMT data, and restoring back and confirming back, right? So this is pretty clear on a single machine. In this case, you don't need to do anything more. All you have to do is create a state migration point that you have already done, and you have to run this task sequence. That's it. Nothing else is required. But in case of old computer to new computer, so how will a how do you make that association between old computer and new computer, right? First step, with respect to task sequence, what we need to do is, on the old computer you will have only these steps, and on the new computer you will have, along with OS, you will have this step. That means, let me create two different task sequence for you. I say create task sequence. This time I'm creating a custom task sequence. Okay, you remember I told custom task sequence means it is nothing but blank task sequence. USMT capture only task sequence. Next, next. So what do I have here? When I edit, it will be blank, nothing, right? I can create whatever I want. I can add or remove. But now what I'll do, instead of adding and remove, since I already have a Windows 7 deployment task sequence here, I'll edit this. I'll copy this part and paste it here, right? So now my task sequence is created. What is this new task sequence doing? It is only capturing the data. That's it, right? So apply. And what will I do with this new task sequence? What will I do with this new task sequence? I'll run this new task sequence. I'll deploy it on the old computer. I'm talking about two laptops here, right? When I have two laptops, I have to run this capture only capture on the old computer, and on the new computer, let me have one more task sequence for your understanding, easier understanding. Create task sequence, create a new custom task sequence. I'll call this as OSD replace scenario. So this is for replace scenario. And again, this is a custom task sequence. There's nothing in there. And where's my other task sequence? This is the standard task sequence I had created earlier. You might have guessed my next move here. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to copy installing the operating system. It does not need to capture. Capture has already been done on the older computer. It has to install operating system. That means it has to partition disk, install operating system, do this drivers part, everything. And finally, it has to set up the OS and restore it as well, right? Just a minute. Control. Let me remove this. I'm just making sure that this particular folder is not becoming a subfolder of this. I wanted it outside. Let me try this way. Let me bring it outside. Yeah. Okay. So this, what is this doing? It is installing the operating system. It is installing the application, and finally it is restoring data, right? So now you have two task sequence. One is capturing the data on old computer that will be deployed only to the old computer, and on the new bare metal machine I'll deploy this task sequence which will install and which will restore the data. Is this part clear? Anil and Amar, any questions here?
No, Manhar.
Okay. Now we have two task sequences and two different computers, right? This part is clear. But now how are you still going to make a association between these two machines, right? Between the old one and the new one. So this is how we do it. So let me first save this part. Okay, so I go to assets and compliance. Okay, I go to under user state migration, right? So I have something called create computer association. So I'll give this is the source computer and this is the destination computer. That means I'll select those two computers. So we already have uh, some test machine, right? Yeah, may test 01 or I think reference machine is there. Say suppose yeah, may test 01 is my old computer. Okay, and my new computer is my target machine. So now I made an association between these two, and now here I can tell that capture and restore specified user accounts. So if I want only specific user accounts, so I can mention only those accounts that I need to capture, right? Or capture restore all user accounts, or you know capture all user accounts but restore only a specified account. So typically, why do you have this concept here? It is because as I already told you, on a machine, on a end user, sometimes tech support logs in to troubleshoot something. Somebody else, you might log in with an administrator account, right? You run as with an administrator. So whenever you do such kind of activities, multiple profiles are getting created on your machine, but you don't want to migrate all those profiles onto the newer machine. You just wanted to migrate your user ID, just the actual user who is working on that laptop, right? So in that case, you will just specify, okay, capture and restore specified user account, and you'll select only that specific account here, right? So in our case, since it is demo purpose, capture and restore all user accounts, right? So now there is an association made. It says the installation type is side by side, right? Because you're doing a replace. It's a side by side migration. So in case of the case one, what I discussed, same laptop and installing, there also a computer association will be created, but it will be created automatically by Sccm, and here in the migration type you will see as in place. Clear, guys? Um,
No.
yeah. So let me just give you an layman example for this computer association. Why is this required, and how will it work? So say suppose you're going out, right? So and you are expecting your wife to come back a little later to your house. So what you'll do, since you're going out, so you hand over the keys to your neighbors and tell them, okay, when my wife comes and she asks for the keys, so please give it to her, right? So you leave, and when she comes back, she asks for the keys. So the other guy confirms that, checks that he knows that she is your wife, and he gives the keys to her, right? So the same process, what we are doing here is you have your data. So who should get this data? Say suppose if you are not specifying a computer association, if you're not putting an association between the old computer and the new computer, right? So anybody can access that data, right? You don't want that to happen. It is very specific, your confidential data. So what you're doing, you are telling SCCM server, right? You are giving keys to SCCM server, telling that, okay, my data has been encrypted and this is the recovery key, and hand over this recovery key and the encrypted data only when the newer laptop which is associated with me, only when the newer laptop which is associated, only when that laptop comes to you and requests and asks like, do I have any user data? Yes, tell them that, yes, I have the keys, I have the MIG file, and give it to them, right? So this is an association between the old computer and new computer is very mandatory. Otherwise, how will SCM know for which user which data has to be restored back, right? Is this part clear, guys?
Yes, Manoj. So just a query here, Manoj. So
Mhm,
when there is a new computer, so
mhm.
each time that computer has to be added into all systems, right? The new computer. Then we have to associate, pull out one specific computer name and then associate it. Right?
Yes, so if you are planning for user data migration, see there are two different ways. If you are giving just building laptops and you are not bothered about user data migration, okay, it's just building laptops, then you don't need to import the computers here. Just have the unknown computer support and build all those machines with unknown computers, right? So that's one way. But if you really want user data to be migrated, this is the only route. You have to import those computers into your SCM console and then associate them with an older laptop.
Okay.
Okay, because why I'm saying if you don't want to do user data migration, even that scenario happens multiple times. Most of my clients, many times I've seen them, they're saying that, okay, we don't want user data to be migrated, that we will take care of it, right? So customers would prefer to still follow the traditional method of, they will say that we still want the old laptop be online. Okay, when we are giving a new laptop to the end user, we still want the old laptop be there, and they will they will work on Windows 10. However, they want to still, say suppose they have some productive work, right? And most of the business users I've seen, they are not very techy, and they don't understand. The moment they see Windows 10 and the interface, they'll get confused. They will say that, okay, my productivity is at loss, I'm not able to work on this new machine, right? So they want to still have that secondary machine Windows 7 with them, and slowly they wanted to get used to Windows 10, and that's when they wanted to copy their data to Windows 7 to Windows 10. So I've seen most of my US or Australian and UK customers, I've seen them saying this, that my customers, even if you change a shortcut from the desktop and tell them that now it is under your start menu programs or it is on your start menu layout, they'll get confused. All that they know is every day morning they come up and they're on their desktop, they'll have a green icon. I have to double click that green icon and I have to work on my application. Even if you change the color from green to red, they'll get confused. So that's how they are. So that's by default. All the business users are like that. So it is always asked that don't do the user data migration now. We will take care of it later, and we want both the laptops be with the customer. So in that scenario, yes, you don't need to take this entire route. You can say, okay, unknown computer support, and just install it. Clear, Amar?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see this practically. Now we have done a computer association between May-test 01 and target Win7, right? So guess my both the machines are in good condition to start. Target machine. So what I will do to save some time, I'll create one more task sequence. See what is my first, so what I'm supposed to do now USMT capture only will run on my this machine, which is mate S01, and my OSD replay scenario will run on the target machine. But OSD replay scenario will again install the operating system, install applications, device, everything, and finally it will restore data. But already that has been done on my target machine, right? Just to save time, what I'll do, I'll create one more task sequence. I'll code it as USMT restore only, just to save time. But it is one and the same. Guys, you're able to follow me, right? You know why I'm doing this. So what I'm trying to do here is OSD replace scenario, and then you USMT restore only. So what I'm saying, instead of doing everything, I'll just restore. I'll have only restore here, because already OSD part has been already done on that machine. For our demo purpose, I don't want to again do OSD installation and wait for 1 hour to complete. I'm only restoring data here. Okay. So now let's go to console and let us create two collections, one for capture and one for restore. Let me do it real quick. Create device collection. This collection is for USMT capture. All laptops will be part of this collection. In my case, I know the old laptop is Mate S01. Come on. And I'm creating one more collection for USMT restore. What is the new machine? Target percentage. Okay. So now I have two collections, one for USMT capture, one for USMT restore. Let me update them so that I have the, yep, I have this. Right. I have both the collections ready. Where are my task sequences? So before I target the task sequences, so let me do one thing. Let me go to the client machines, my test01. Okay, so I already have something on the desktop. Okay, let me also create some more entries on my C drive. I'm creating a text document. We'll see what is getting copied and what is not. Okay, and the users, administrator, desktop citizen, my documents. I will create one more text file. User data, I'll name it as user data. Or I'll create a bitmap image, user image, right? So I'm expecting that this is the user data and I wanted this data to be captured and restored back on the end user on the other computer. Here also I'll create a compressed zip folder. Right. Now I'm going back to my console. Capture, deploy. Sorry, where is my task sequence? Capture only. Deploy it to the USMT capture collection. Guys, is my video fast enough or slow? I'm just going real quick. I hope you are able to see each and every screen.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So either I can make it available. So let me make it available so that I can trigger it from the software center. So you remember the other day I was talking about download content locally when needed by running task sequence, and download all content locally before starting the task. This is what I was talking about the other day. Okay. Anyways, this is done. Now restore only. Even this I want to deploy. I'll make this also available. So it is many a times even this will happen. So when you're planning migrations, right? USMT capture only task sequence should run first, and then obviously your OSD and restore part should run later, right? So sometimes during the planning it fails. Somewhere the set of machines, some 15 or 100, say 100 machines, you first try to do the run the OS deployment tasks. You'll be in a hurry, and then you will run the USMT capture. Obviously, they will not get the user data backup, right? So it is like your wife going to your neighbors and asking for the keys when you are still in the house. You have not handed over the keys to them, right? So make sure that USMT capture only task sequence runs first, captures the data, and then you can restore it. So let's do this now practically. Where's my machine? On MATES01 control panel, configuration manager. The first thing I have to do, not wait for 60 minutes, run machine policy. Second thing, I'll go to my software center. I have to find this new thing there. There you go. USMT capture only, the new software is available, right? So let's run this. Confirm that you want to install a new operating system on your computer, because this is a task sequence. That's why it says so, but there's no new operating system involved there. Say yes. Okay. So it is capturing user files and settings. So just for your understanding, there are two exes which run in the background. Okay. When you're doing USMT capture, there's something called scanstate.exe. As the name says, scanning, right? Scanstate.exe will run. When you're restoring it back on any machine, loadstate.exe will run. So there are two exes which will run in the background. So the scanstate.exe will run when you're capturing user data. So that means if you go to your client machine and check for the log files, you'll have something related to scanstate. So where will the log files will? It is under C Windows, the same Sccm logs, right? Sccm logs. There should be something related to scanstate. So currently it is under SMSTS log folder. Once this is done, it will be copied out. But as you can see, there's scanstate log file, and it is showing you what it is doing. And if you go to the progress of it, it will show you the percentage, how much data has been copied and what's the percentage of it. It is initializing. Slowly you'll see the percentage. It will tell, okay, 20% is 30% of data has been copied. Let's wait for it. and simultaneously you can also see this entire data being copied onto the state migration point, right? You have created a folder for that purpose, USMT data folder. So there, this data has to be created. So it will create one file called .mig migration, right? .mig. So that mig file is an encrypted file that will be, so this entire data will be will be zipped into a mig file, and that will be copied onto your state migration point. We'll see it shortly. Okay, so it is processing all the users, all the profiles that are there on this particular machine, because we said all users, right? So it is estimating right now. 97% estimation has been done. So now it is actually copying the data. Okay, sorry, it is still estimating the size of the files and settings. Because when we are talking about user data, it's not just the user data, it will also do application settings, right? Any user specific settings that you have, all that is also being captured. So that way, see, I can tell you one good example, like um, some people will ask me like, why do I need USMT? Why can't I just manually copy the user data from here to there? Yes, you can still do that, but let me give you a real-time scenario. Your users, as you said, Anil, like somebody is there with the company for 5 years, 10 years, he is using a laptop. So he has on his machine, he has Word, and he has every time a new word that he types, there will be the dictionary, the grammar check will give a red line, right? And you might be saying either ignore or add to dictionary, right? Say suppose your own name, when you put Anil there, Anil Kumar, so it says, so it will put a red line. So next time what you say, add to dictionary. So every next time when you create a new document and you, if it has your name, it will obviously understand that it has to be, it is a legitimate thing, and it will not put that red line. So it now your name has been added to a custom dictionary. Now, not just your name, like that, many other words you have added to your custom dictionary. Now, what happens when you again go to the new laptop? If you're just copying the user data and not the application settings, you'll not get this custom dictionary there. So what will happen? Though there could be some terms which are within your company. For example, your company name is XYZ. Okay, even in the new laptop, when you type XYZ, it will give you, even if it is your own company name, maybe Infosys or Wipro. When you put your own company name, still it will put a red line under that, right? Because there is no custom dictionary there. You're getting my point? So such things, application settings are very important, and that can be done only from the USMT. User manually copying and pasting it, you will not get this application settings, right? Okay, so scan state progress, it's completed. So now you don't see it under SMS log, it will be copied outside once the task sequence is completed. So what's the name? Scan state progress. As you can see, the percentage 100% completed, successfully run. There was if there was any particular file it was not able to copy or something like that, it will mention that error code and say that, okay, these many number of files I was not able to copy, and it will also tell you what files it was not able to copy, right? In this case, it's 100% done. Now what you'll do, since let us first go and check on the server, SCM server. If you find under source USMT data, you see there's a folder created here, and under that USMT you have this MIG file, right? So now you have your MIG file created. So that means keys are given to the neighbors. Now what I need to do, I have to go to my other machine, target machine. So suppose this is my new laptop and I'm building this new laptop. So I have already built this new laptop in this case. So ideally what I would run, I would run the OS deployment, entire OS deployment, which will do the OS deployment. Along with OS deployment, it would have also restored data. To save time, I'm just restoring data and I'm not running the OS deployment part. Control panel, configuration manager, don't want to wait for 60 minutes. And where's my software center? and I am in a hurry to restore my user data. Okay, so there you have your task sequence. You simply restore only. It's still busy. Okay, install. So here, as I told you, you can check what? You can check the load state progress, and load state log file. So again the same C. Okay, in this case it's not C. So actually it has two drives. D, Windows, Sccm, logs. Still it is in SMSTS. It did not trigger the your actual restoring load state.exe. Okay, now it will trigger load state.exe. Okay, I have it here. So it is telling you what it is going to run. Okay, and then if you go to your load state progress, this is where you will see the percentage. Really? Did it really copy or it failed? I don't think it has copied. That was too fast. Load state progress. It was just initializing, right? Okay. Actually, it just initialized and it failed. Let me check if it says it failed or if it says it came back. Even if it fails, that doesn't matter because no need to get into the troubleshooting part. What we can also do is, I wanted to anyways show you how to restore data if the task sequence fails, right? So we can do that, but let me check what exactly is happening. So it says installed. It is not saying as failure. Let me just check reinstall and see what happens. It requested, it is trying to restore. Am I still there? Okay, there you go. It came out with something else. So let me check that what exactly happened on this machine. Logs SMSTS will also be outside now. This is the new one, so there must be an old one archived. Okay, so what exactly happened here? Failed to run the action release user state store, but even before that, it failed to copy data. Why did that happen? Yes, so even before that it failed. Okay, it says not enough storage is available to complete this operation. So basically it is trying to restore the user data back on C drive. Say unfortunately on this machine what happened was C drive was created as a recovery partition and D as the actual OS. And whereas the in the on the initial machine where we have captured it, you have C as the actual one, right? So it is trying to restore the data back, and it says since there's no enough storage available, so that's the reason it is failing. No issues. So let's do one thing. I want to anyway show you how to do it manually. So let me show how to do it manually. So now, Amar, are you still with me? Amar? Okay. So looks like you guys are up for the recording. Fine. So how do I do this now? In the console, I want to show you the migration part, user state migration. So this migration, when it happens, if you go and check the recovery information, it'll have a recovery key here, right? And it has the actual MIG file copied. So what you can do, you can first copy that MIG file, use empty data. You can copy this MIG file to the target machine. And I'll see if I'll have an option to copy it to D drive. If not, even if this tries to copy to C, then it will obviously fail, but let's see. Okay, it is asking for the password. That is what I've shown it to you here on the Sccm server console. When you go to the recovery information, this is where you get the password. I don't know if I can copy paste from there to here. No, it is not allowing me to. Let me just put it in a notepad here itself. I just kept the key here, right? Just Control A, Control C. Maybe I've given the key wrong. So the key starts with C1 and ends with HUCJ. Let me copy the complete makefile location here. For some weird reason, I'm not able to copy it. Just give me a minute, guys. So as we can see that on the client machine, so on this machine, target machine, we have a D drive, right? We have a different drive here and C drive as a recovery partition. So in order to have a similar setup of how I have the reference machine or the old machine, right? So what I'm doing here, I'll go to the console. Let's do this way. Let's change this task sequence itself. Even if it is taking some 30 minutes anyways, you guys have already left. So I'll just continue recording this particular portion. Partition disk 0. I'll remove this primary partition. I'll remove this. I'll just have one partition for everything. Right, I'm just having the 100% for C drive. Apply and this drivers part as well. Since we don't need these drivers, I'm just removing that from here. Okay, so we're good. So this one is going to capture and okay, I don't want capture part as well, right? This has been already taken care there. Okay, so this is going to install operating system, and during partition disk it is putting 100% for the C drive, and then install applications and other part. Okay, cool, this is good. So let me also clear the PXE flag on the machine. Where's it? Research and compliance. Okay, this has been cleared. The machine is ready. So let me trigger it. Okay, and meanwhile, stop the other one. This test 01 anyways, it is not required already. USMT capture has been completed, so I can shut down this machine. So I'll keep this recording on. So basically what we are doing now is, since we don't have on the mate S01 we have C drive, whereas on this machine we have C drive as recovery partition, which is just few MB, and then we have D drive. So to make sure that we have a standard image on both the machines, so what I'm trying to do is I've changed the task sequence to have just the C drive. Okay, so now we are going to build the entire machine and just do the actual replace task sequence. Initially I thought of just doing the restart to save some time, but since we don't have the same partitions here, so I'm going to partition format this machine completely, just have C drive, install OS, install Adobe Reader and Google Chrome, and finally restore the user data from the mate S01. Let's see how it goes. So I'll be here at my desk for a couple more minutes, just to give the initial inputs, and then I'll walk away. Pixie password it found when 7 deployment task sequences there. Fine, say next. Okay, so it's applying operating system. So guys, I'll step away from my desk and be back once this deployment is completed.